Hello, this is Brett, and in this video we're going to talk about writing and using functions. So up to this point, all of the code that we've written is in the main function. And what functions allow us to do is take code that would be in the main function normally and extract that out into another grouping, and then we can give that grouping of code a name, and then we can call that function and it will execute the code. So to get into this and show you an example, let's start by creating a character array called first name, and we'll just put Brett in here. And then I want to write some code that will go through this character array and it will print out each letter of the array. So because I'm going to do a loop, I will have a variable that's an integer. We'll call it I, and then I'll say for I equals 0. Then we'll go into our first name array and we'll say, we'll use the indexer, and we'll say if it does not equal a null character, so this is how we'll iterate through the array all the way till the end where there's a null, then we'll increment our counter here. So from there we're going to grab the character out of the array here, and this will grab each character by the index, and so the first time through the loop it will check, it'll get a value here which is b. b does not equal the null character, so it'll go through the loop. In the loop we'll grab that b, we'll assign it to this variable called ch, and then we will say printf, and then we will just give it a character. And then here we'll give it the character that we assigned. So if we run this, we'll do make functions, and we'll execute functions. And so we get this list here of B-R-E-T-T, and it gave us the each character in that. Now if we wanted to put a new line character in here, we'll get it in this, it's going from top to bottom, getting each of the characters. So this is a way that we can print some letters. So if we wanted to extract this concept into a different method, or a function, we could create a new function and say void print letters, and then we can specify some of the input parameters into our function here. So what we need is to get a character array, and we'll call it arg. So when you use this function, you have to give it a character array. And then what we'll do is copy and paste this code through a process called refactoring. So we're extracting this code into a method here. And then up in our main function, we will call print letters. And then we will give it first name here. And so what will happen is when we get into this main method, we'll start running through, and the computer will go to line 5 and it will create this first name array, and then we call print letters and we pass it first name, which that will jump down to this print letters. We get this arg, first name gets passed through here, and then as we go through we get for I equals, and then first name here we need to change to arg because what we named it in the input here is arg. And then we'll change this to arg here. So if we clear the screen and then we run this again, we get an error, and it says implicit declaration of function print letters is invalid. So what's happening is it's coming through here and it's saying print letters, and it hasn't been declared yet. And so it says the implicit declaration of function print letters, and that's because we've declared print letters after we've declared main, and in C that does matter. So what I'll do is take print letters and move it above the main function. Then I'll run it again, and you'll see that we get the correct output. So functions at its most basic level is taking a grouping of code, and this is the code that we've grouped together. We've given it a name, and then we specify the input parameters here. So this is saying when you call this print letters, give me some inputs, and then void here is specifying what the outputs of this are, or the return of this statement. So void is saying there is no return. We're not going to return any values from this function. but I'll show you another example in a minute how you can return values from this. But again, it's important to understand what's happening here, and stepping through the code step by step is really probably the easiest way of understanding this. Saying, okay, 17, line 17, this we execute this line. 18, there's nothing here, so we skip down. Line 19, print letters executes. We pass it this value of Brett here, and then we jump up to print letters. It executes these lines, and then when it's done, it returns. It continues on and then returns from our main function, which we should be putting return 0 there. So that's how functions work. So let's do another one, and we'll say, this will be a little bit of an easier one. We'll say int add, and we'll say that we need an integer a and another integer b, and all we're going to do is return a plus b. So down in our main function here, we can say add 2 plus 2. Now, because we said that add is going to return an integer, we need to decide where that's going to go. So we'll say the sum equals add 2 plus 2. So when this executes, it will add these two numbers, and then it will return the value, the result, back into sum. And then here we could say printf, and then we'll say sum equals, and then we'll do put that in there for the integer, and then we'll put sum. So we'll save that. Oops, silly typo. Not 2 plus 2. We need to put 2 comma 2, because this is saying that the first input is 2, which correlates with this input here. And then we need a comma to say the second input here is 2, which is b, and so that will be 2, and then that will get returned. So we run that and we say the sum equals 4. And again, just reviewing that we called this function with one parameter with a second parameter of the function, and 2 and 2 are the arguments that we passed in there, and then we printed that out. So the thing to remember with functions is you need to, in C, you need to give it the return type that you're going to return. And if you're not going to return anything, you can use void. Then you have the name here of your function, and then you have the parameter list of all of the different parameters that this needs to take. So hopefully that gives you a good introduction to functions. Again, this is like the other things we've been talking about. Functions get used a lot in programming, and it's a good way to make your code readable. So you can abstract concepts like this print letters function. So rather than thinking of how all this works, we just call print letters, and we know it will print those letters. Notice, though, too, that printf is a function, right? We're calling it in the same way that we called our other function, but printf is a function that's provided by the standard library, or this standard io.h. So the way that we are able to call the printf function is we included standard io.h, and it gave us access to this printf function that we can use. So play with that and keep researching on functions, but that's the introduction to functions, and hope you have a good day.